Here's your integrated 3 lecture for 4.1.1. Since we weren't together in class today, we have this video. So we're going to learn about surveys and survey design. So it says, have you ever heard statements like the one below? 81% of public school students are not satisfied with the food provided by their schools. Or the president has an approval rating of 72%. How do news sources get this information? Do they ask every public school student? Do they ask every citizen? What questions do they ask? How reliable are their methods? And do you believe them? In this chapter, you'll learn some of the methods used by statisticians to justify claims such as these. You'll also apply these methods to investigate your own research question. By the way, we're not going to do our own research question. We're just going to kind of learn about this vocabulary and kind of have an introduction. So, 4.1, what do we want to know? Before you can figure out a way to gather information, you need to know what information you're looking for or what question you're trying to answer. So I want you to work with your team to brainstorm a research question that you find interesting and that might be investigated with a few short survey questions. Be clear about the population, which is the entire group, in which you are interested in. Here are some examples to get your thinking started. So, for example, if my question is, what do voters in this town think about raising taxes? I don't need to go talk to the kindergarten class. I need to talk only to voters. You know what I mean? So, your population would be voters, and not all voters. It's just you only care about getting surveys from voters in this town. So your population would actually be voters in this town. So the next one says, do church-going adults prefer Taco Gong over Burger Beast? So if that's your question that you're trying to gather information on, you're really only trying to get information from church-going adults. So you're not going to go, talk to the high school students, or, you're not going to go to talk to non-church-going or non-adults for your population. So your population in this one is just church-going adults. That's your target population. Or this next one says, are students at Northwest High more artistic than those at their athletic rival Southeast High? So on this one, your target population are going to be the high school students of Northwest High and Southwest High. So that's just kind of an introduction. We're not going to do like a class research. We're not going to do big projects in this chapter. We're just kind of giving you an introduction, and then later on, if you ever want to take a statistics class, then you would get more into this. But for right now, we're just kind of learning just a little bit. So it says soon you will write survey questions, but we're not really going to write those. However, before you do that, understanding how the questions that you ask can influence your results is important. Influence on a study that favors a certain outcome is called bias. So discuss each of the following survey questions with your team. For each one, look for ways in which the question might contain bias, and then rewrite the question to reduce the bias you find, and be prepared to share your ideas with the class. So when you get questions like this in your homework and you want to know if you're right or wrong, it's kind of hard the answers are always going to say, answers may vary, but try to answer in a way that shows that you understand what's being asked of you. So we're looking for bias. In letter A, it says, do teenagers worry about getting poor grades? So is that, the way that that's worded, is that going to influence the person who's being asked to answer in a certain way? I would say you tell me. I think the use of the word poor might bias the the people that you ask to think that there's that this is something to get worried about. Like, you could just say, do teenagers worry about their grades? Or do teenagers care a lot about their grades? Like, I don't know. I don't think it's particularly biased, but maybe take that word poor out. These are tricky. Letter B says, do you support the governor's education plan that ensures that students will be more successful in school? Well, this one seems kind of biased to me because the way that they're wording it makes it sound like, well, how could you not? You know, how could you not support the education plan that's going to help students be more successful in school? So perhaps that one could have some bias in it. Because any reasonable person wants students to be more successful, but that doesn't mean that you agree with the governor's approach. So I mean, these are very subtle. Sometimes you just have some really just outright bias. I don't know if we're going to find any of that. Maybe the next one. Does the frequent occurrence of brutal violence in movies and video games have a negative effect on the people exposed to them? So this one has more obvious bias in it because you can tell that the person asking the question wants you to say, yeah, that the brutal violence in the movies have a negative effect on the people exposed to them. Like, I think the strong language of brutal, they want whoever they're asking to say, yes, I think that the violence in the movies and the video games is affecting my kids. They could have made that more neutral. Like, do you think students are affected by violence that they see in the video games and movies? That would be a little bit less biased. So hopefully you're getting the idea. Do you believe the current movie rating system is effective? Well, that's interesting, that just the order that they put it in. Like, they just talked about the brutal violence and the negative effect on the young people, and then the very next question they ask about current movie ratings and is it effective. So it seems like they're getting at something. Like, so I think that there's just bias in the order of how they asked. And we're actually it's on the next page. We're going to go read through that. Should your teachers be paid more? I don't know if there's a lot of bias in that. I think maybe the question kind of implies that teachers are underpaid. But I think the only way you could really clean that up is just say, how much do you think teachers should be paid? That way it's not, I don't know, implying that teachers aren't being paid enough. And then letter F says, moderate exercise is necessary to stay healthy. Do you exercise regularly? Well, it just told you 1 second ago that moderate exercise is necessary to stay healthy. So it sounds like they want you to say that you exercise regularly. Because, I mean, who wants to admit that they don't? Like, who doesn't want to be healthy? So this one has bias because this thing is called a preface. They prefaced their question with a statement. So I'm going to, I don't know if we have enough time to read these real quick. I'm just going to skim these because I need to keep my video under 10 minutes. But basically, this is right in your book. You can read it slowly if you want to, but the order of the questions matters, like that one about the violence in the movies. So that's something you can look for. A preface, that's like the one that said moderate exercise is necessary to stay healthy. That can be a form of bias. If there's two questions in one, so what was two questions in one? Let's see. So it says question B in one. two questions in one. Oh, okay, so in question B, a person might not know or support the governor's education plan, but they might support success for all students in school, so using two different separate questions would reduce bias. So sometimes you kind of like, you force people into an answer because you didn't give them enough choices. Like on letter B, most people are going to say they want kids to be successful in school. So if you lump something else in with that, that can cause some bias. And then biased wording, like when they said brutal violence, something like that, or even poor grades, it's just kind of unpleasant words, or it could be pleasant words, like would you like to have a lovely new freeway going through the town, or something like that. You could bias both ways. And then desire to please. I'll read this one. Research shows that many survey takers will answer in the way that they perceive will please the surveyor. And so I think like letter F, like you're going to want to say that you exercise regularly, because I mean it makes you sound bad if you don't, and there might be more, but I want to keep the video a little shorter, so I'll do a part 2.